You are about to get the exact blueprint to bypass thousands of dollars in sudden, catastrophic engine repairs, and it all revolves around one $7 piece of metal you probably do not even own yet. I am going to give you 3 distinct tiers of solutions, starting from a ridiculously simple convenience fix you can execute right now at the parts counter, moving into a precise budget hack that alters the microscopic physics of how your engine block operates, and finally, the absolute permanent fix that master mechanics use on their own personal cars, but will never tell you about in the service bay. You will never view your vehicle's engine or the maintenance schedule in your glove box the exact same way again. But before we get to the specific $4 trick that permanently changes everything about your car's reliability, you have to deeply understand why the expensive, premium parts you have been proudly pouring into your car are actually failing you miserably behind closed doors. The lie starts with a number you have almost certainly seen heavily marketed in your owner's manual, and on the side of every shiny parts box: 100,000 miles. Modern dealerships and automotive manufacturers boldly claim that factory spark plugs are now a lifetime part, designed to easily last 100,000 miles before you ever need to think about turning a wrench. Here's the terrifying part about that exact claim. It is an engineered fabrication designed entirely to artificially lower the estimated cost of ownership on paper. So you buy the car off the showroom floor, completely ignoring the microscopic destruction happening inside your cylinder heads every single time you turn the key. By the time you reach that magical 100,000 mile mark, your spark plugs have physically fired hundreds of millions of times in a brutally hot, pressurized vacuum. The precious metals on the electrodes have violently vaporized and worn down. The physical gap between the spark points has widened significantly. Because of this, your ignition coils are suddenly forced to work double time, spiking their voltage output just to push an electrical arc across a chasm that is far too wide. This generates massive amounts of unwanted electrical heat that slowly cooks the internal resin of your ignition coils, leading to a catastrophic chain reaction misfire. That misfire then dumps raw, unburned liquid fuel straight out of the exhaust valves and directly into your catalytic converter, superheating it until the internal honeycomb melts into a solid brick. A completely routine maintenance item suddenly transforms into a $3,000 exhaust and engine block repair. The mathematical reality is that standard copper plugs actually degrade to the point of failure by 25 to 30,000 miles. Platinum gives up around 45 to 60,000. Even the legendary ultra-expensive iridium plugs are severely compromised by 60 to 80,000 miles. If you are blindly waiting for 100,000 miles, you are daily driving a ticking time bomb. But the sheer age of the plug is not even the biggest issue, because even brand new premium components are being installed every single day with a fatal invisible flaw. Now, look closely at how the actual physics of combustion work inside the dark, violently pressurized chamber of your internal combustion engine. When your piston travels violently upward, it compresses a highly volatile, atomized mixture of liquid fuel and oxygen. At the exact millisecond of maximum compression, your spark plug must deliver an arc of electricity to ignite that vapor. This is not a gentle, flickering flame. It is a controlled, catastrophic explosion generating thousands of degrees of thermal heat and thousands of pounds of pressure per square inch, hammering down on the connecting rods. For that electrical arc to be perfectly timed and perfectly hot, the physical gap between the center electrode and the metal ground strap on the spark plug must be mathematically accurate down to the thousandth of an inch. If the gap is too narrow, the electrical spark is incredibly weak, failing to ignite the heavy fuel mixture, causing a violently rough idle, severe hesitation, and wasted gas. If the gap is too wide, the electrical spark might be physically blown out by the sheer hurricane-force winds of the compression. Stroke at high RPMs. That means a dead misfire, a massive loss of horsepower, and raw, unburned fuel literally washing the critical protective oil film off your cylinder walls, leading to irreversible metal-on-metal friction wear. This tiny electrical arc is literally lightning jumping across a miniature, pressurized sky, and the exact voltage required to make. That jump depends entirely on the atmospheric pressure inside the cylinder and the distance of the jump. That tiny millimeter gap dictates your engine's total horsepower, its fuel economy, and its ultimate lifespan. But here's the secret the parts stores do not want you to know about those expensive new plugs they just aggressively upsold you at the counter. This brings us to the first tier, the absolute simplest convenient solution for the person who just wants to buy the exact right thing and be done with it without getting scammed. The secret here is precise material selection and microscopic cleanliness. You have been told by decades of aggressive, multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns that you absolutely need to upgrade to premium, high-dollar iridium spark plugs to get better performance and unlock hidden horsepower. That is a complete and utter fabrication. You must always, without a single exception, choose the exact spark plug core material that your vehicle's original manufacturer specified on the day it was built. If your engine was engineered in the 1990s specifically for a cheap, $3 copper plug threading a highly expensive $15 iridium plug into. That block is not going to magically give you more horsepower. In fact, because the dense metal of iridium naturally possesses a much higher electrical resistance than highly conductive copper, you might actually experience a dramatically weaker spark and vastly worse performance, if your factory ignition system was not specifically designed to push that exact required voltage. Save your hard-earned money and buy the exact OEM recommended plug material. But before you even think about putting a socket on the old ones to take them out, you must execute a strictly non-negotiable cleaning step. You need a standard can of compressed air, the exact same kind you use to clean a dusty computer keyboard. Before putting a wrench on anything, you must blow out the deep spark plug wells completely. Over the years, abrasive silica sand, road grit, and microscopic metal shavings gather directly at the base of the plug. The exact moment you unscrew those threads, gravity pulls. That highly abrasive nightmare directly down into your open, unprotected combustion chamber. Just one single grain of hard sand violently scoring your soft aluminum cylinder wall on startup will permanently destroy compression and cost you an entire engine rebuild. It is a simple $5 can of air that permanently prevents $5,000 in precision machining. Yet the real insidious danger happens the moment you actually go to thread the brand new replacements in. But here's the part that should utterly terrify you about forcing hard metal into soft aluminum. The most fiercely debated topic in professional automotive garages worldwide is anti-seize compound. And doing this wrong will permanently destroy your engine block in seconds. This is your budget hack, the exact granular chemical method to ensure you never strip a spark plug thread again. You have to look incredibly closely at the microscopic threads of your brand new spark plug under a bright light. If the metal is highly shiny and has a specific, slick factory coating on it like many modern premium NGK plugs do right out of the box, you must execute a strictly dry install. Do not put a single drop of chemical or oil on those threads. The specialized factory coating is specifically engineered to act as a chemical release agent under intense heat. But if you are using standard, traditional plugs with dull, bare metal threads, and you are threading them into a soft aluminum engine block, you have a massive galvanic corrosion problem actively waiting to happen. The two dissimilar metals will actually physically weld themselves together through a chemical reaction over the next 40,000 miles of thermal expansion. Here is the exact fail-proof recipe to stop it permanently. You need a tiny bottle of high-temperature copper anti-seize paste. Do not use the generic silver stuff. You specifically need the copper compound for its exact thermal heat transfer properties. Take a small wooden toothpick. Absolutely do not use the massive sloppy brush that comes inside the bottle. Dip the wooden tip into the copper paste and apply a microscopic, razor-thin amount only to the middle 3 threads of the spark plug. Keep it entirely, strictly away from the firing electrode and the bottom starting threads, because if that highly conductive metallic paste even brushes the firing tip, it will instantly short out the electrical path and cause a dead, permanently misfiring cylinder. This microscopic application costs literal pennies and mathematically guarantees that 5 years from now, that plug will back out smooth as glass instead of violently snapping off inside the cylinder head. But even perfectly lubricated threads will spectacularly fail if you completely miss the permanent paradigm shift that ties this entire mechanical ecosystem together. And here is the part where you stop thinking about engine misfires, poor fuel economy, and ignition failure for years at a time, completely changing the upward trajectory of your vehicle's lifespan. The permanent fix is not a magical chemical poured into your gas tank. It is a specialized $7 tool called a wire feeler gauge, combined with an absolute, unwavering refusal to ever trust factory packaging again. Every single cardboard box of spark plugs currently sitting on a parts store shelf proudly, and boldly claims the words pre-gapped on the side. This is arguably the biggest, most damaging lie in the modern automotive industry. These delicate plugs are manufactured in massive, high-speed batches, dropped aggressively onto metal conveyor belts, shoved into thin cardboard boxes, loaded roughly onto heavy wooden pallets, and bounced across the ocean on massive cargo ships, before being thrown onto a delivery truck. The highly delicate, bendable metal ground strap on the very end of that plug takes an absolute beating during transit, and the gap is almost never mathematically accurate by the time it finally reaches your hands. If you blindly take a pre-gap plug out of the box and just blindly screw it into your engine, you are actively choosing to misalign your engine's precise combustion timing. You must take your $7 wire feeler gauge, and you must make sure it is the wire style, absolutely not the cheap, sloping coin-style gauge that physically scrapes the precious rare metal right off the firing tip. Slide the exact correct wire measurement through the gap. It should pass through the opening with a very slight, velvety drag. If it is too tight or too loose, you must use the specialized bending tool attached to the gauge to physically, carefully adjust the ground strap until it is perfectly, seamlessly matched to your exact owner's manual specification. Do not guess. Do not eyeball it. This is the permanent physical barrier against premature engine wear. Furthermore, to install this highly tuned part perfectly, you must use a calibrated torque wrench. Brute strength, brawn, and mechanical muscle memory are completely useless here. If you over-tighten a spark plug by even a fraction, you physically stretch the metal-threaded shell, warp the delicate ceramic insulator inside, and create a microscopic crack that will invisibly leak thousands of volts of electricity straight into the engine. Block instead of the cylinder. You can actually walk into almost any major auto parts store and rent a highly accurate, professional torque wrench for absolutely free. You leave a temporary deposit, use the precision tool in the parking lot, and get all of your money back handed to you when you return it. You torque that perfectly gapped, perfectly coated plug to the exact foot-pound specification required by the engineers, and your engine will run smoother, colder, and stronger than the exact day it rolled off the assembly line. Now, before I show you the final 1-second trick that costs almost nothing, if this practical knowledge is helping you, hit like, subscribe to Forbidden Vaults, and drop a comment below with your own methods. It helps more than you know. This brings us to the final, dead simple, instant hack that works the exact moment you pop your hood. Before you recklessly throw away your old, used spark plugs into the trash, you are going to use them as a highly accurate diagnostic crystal ball. This technique requires absolutely $0, uses tools you already have, and takes exactly 1 second of observation. Look incredibly closely at the microscopic tip of the old plug you just pulled out of the block. A healthy, perfectly running engine will always produce a plug that is lightly and evenly coated in dry, grayish tan deposits. It looks exactly like lightly toasted bread. But if you pull a plug out and the tip is thickly coated in a wet, shiny, heavy black sludge, your engine is actively and severely leaking internal oil past the piston rings or the upper valve seals. If the tip is completely covered in a dry, fluffy, soot-like black carbon, your engine is running violently rich, constantly dumping way too much raw fuel into the cylinder, likely due to a completely failing oxygen sensor or a stuck fuel injector. If the white ceramic insulator around the tip is heavily blistered, chalky, and bone white with tiny metallic specks, your engine is running dangerously hot and lean, literally slowly melting its own internal aluminum components under the heat. The old spark plug is a permanent forensic record of everything secretly happening inside the dark, violently sealed environment of your engine block. Reading it instantly tells you exactly what major, expensive component is about to fail, letting you fix it for literal pennies today instead of thousands of dollars tomorrow. So, here's the protocol. First, always consciously choose the exact correct OEM material and aggressively reject the expensive iridium upsell unless your specific engine legally demands it. Then violently blast those deep plug wells with compressed air to prevent catastrophic cylinder scoring. Second, perfectly execute the precise anti-seize application demanding a totally dry install for factory-coated threads and relying on a microscopic, toothpick-sized drop of thermocopper paste strictly for bare metal threads. Third, physically measure and perfectly bend every single ground strap to the exact mathematical specification using a non-damaging wire feeler gauge, completely ignoring the massive pre-gapped packaging lies, and locking it down permanently with a freely rented, highly calibrated torque wrench to prevent ceramic fracturing. Finally, read your old spark plugs exactly like a forensic crime scene investigator to catch catastrophic, hidden engine failure months before it ever actually happens. The absolute truth is, mechanical failure is rarely a mystery. It is almost always a mathematical certainty born from human laziness and corner cutting. Take absolute control of your machine, apply the exact, uncompromising physics required for survival, and the problem loses every single time.